Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the New York Stock Exchange. You're watching the NYSE Wired plus theCUBE's coverage of our media week focusing on crypto Trailblazers. Excited to have Anton Katz here. He's the co-founder and CEO of Talos. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I see founders and co-founders. I always like to ask, why did you and Ethan start the company?
Oh, man. So, in short, my background and Ethan's background, Ethan is my co-founder and CTO.
Yep.
Our background is in building these kind of large-scale systems for institutions in capital markets. We've done this in every other asset class. In some of our companies, we were some of the largest provider of trading systems to the market. So our background is in capital markets. We decided to move into digital assets because, first of all, because we thought that crypto is going to evolve into an actual asset class. And if you hold that as truth, then you will see institutions needing the kind of technology that we provided in capital markets. And so the first assumption for us was institutions will be a part of this, institutions will need tools, we are experts at building those kind of tools. The second assumption here is that we think that crypto and specifically technology under crypto, so that's really technology that powers digital assets, is going to encompass ultimately all of capital markets. And so for us, it's about how do you create a platform that allows institutions to move into digital assets, into this new electronic domain more seamlessly than before.
So you were kind of, people refer to you as the institutional operating system for digital assets.
It's very kind of them.
Well, I mean, I think that's sort of how to think about you. When I was researching the company, my question is, how mature is that? What needs to be done to sort of achieve that founding premise and that vision? I mean, I know you're well on your way, but.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things to keep in mind is how do we think the world evolves from here, right? And what happened in the past 6.5 years that we've been running the company. Mm-hmm. So, generally speaking, when we came into the space, institutions could not really interact with crypto in any meaningful capacity. The tools were not there, the liquidity is super fragmented, the technology was very fragmented, right? So what Talos introduced in the very beginning, the very first thing that we built was connecting all the different liquidity providers together, allowing our clients to interact with exchanges, with OTC providers, market makers, dealers, ultimately connecting to decentralized world as well, right? And so the evolution of the market structure also kind of like evolved with the company there. Today, our clients are coming in for a much more sophisticated tooling that they're asking for. So they're looking for portfolio management tools, they're looking for settlement tools, right? And so what we're seeing is that Talos continues to evolve exactly with the evolution of the market. Right now, as we are starting to touch other asset classes, and we're starting to see other asset classes migrate to digital assets rails, that's ultimately kind of like the last leg of that journey that you're referring to, like what actually happens at the end of it. We're somewhere in between right now. We're now starting to see the true, experimentation and the beginning of adoption of digital assets outside of crypto, so real-world assets starting to move to digital assets, and that's, I think, is the last leg of that evolution. That's when we're going to see the entire capital market starting to migrate to digital assets rail. That's where Talos really, finds its meaning as kind of like the conduit of that new reality.
So you've, in a sense, defragmentized. You mentioned OTC providers, exchanges, dark pools. I mean, you're providing a consistent experience across all of these and providing consistent liquidity across them. That was the first sort of problem you solved.
That was the need of the market, right? We had plenty of our clients coming in and basically saying, we want to trade this asset, and we want to trade this asset like we trade other asset classes in capital markets. And that's bread and butter for us. That's what we've built in capital markets. Even in capital markets, you tend to unify the liquidity pool. You build this aggregation across the entire liquidity pool, you build algorithmic trading tools. That's actually what we did in crypto. So creating, to use your words, this consistent trading experience is almost like creating a consistent and familiar experience to the clients that are migrating from capital markets to digital assets. And so at the beginning when we started, there were quite a lot of crypto natives, people that effectively started their operations in crypto. Today, the vast majority of newer clients that are coming in are some of the largest, more sophisticated institutions in capital markets that are coming into this domain. So creating this unified experience for them, creating a familiar experience, safe experience, is basically one of the top priorities.
So I love it. I love the action here. It's coming to the end of the day. The bell's going to ring pretty soon. It's going to blow our ears out. You can see, you can see they're ringing the bell. And you can hear the action here, which is this is the best part of the day. But so I want to ask you, so just be prepared. Okay, so you just addressed this, but I want you to maybe double click on it a little bit. A lot of people think you just serve, fintechs and crypto natives, but you just described those two worlds are colliding together.
Yeah.
So how do you balance sort of the traditional risk-averse world, sort of stodgy capital market types, versus the high volatility sort of new techs?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the market is that the market is actually dictating that. So what happened is that in the beginning when we launched the firm, we had a lot of risk-friendly institutions that are coming in. They want to interact with this market, they want to trade fast, they're able to take risks, they're able to go after venues that generally people don't go after, right? While the rest of the larger traditional institutions were kind of like held back a little bit, and they were absolutely risk-averse. That is changing pretty dramatically today. For Talos specifically, over the past 10 months, we onboarded asset managers. These are traditional asset managers, between them totaling around $18 trillion of assets under management. That's a whole different ballgame, right? This is not like your typical risk-friendly institutions. These are folks that are there to provide true, meaningful service to their clients. They are traditional in every sense of the word. So the market is kind of like migrating that way. It's slowly adapting and slowly starting to touch those people that are a little bit more on the conservative side.
Do you have, there it comes, do you have a perspective? I'll get the question out. There it is. I don't know, Brendan, if you can hear me. I don't think
that's the close.
There you go. All right. Well, I'm glad you got to experience that, Anton. That's kind of cool.
The challenge is going to be the hearing you now.
Yeah, right. Plug your ears. I should have warned you. Do you have a point of view on sort of digitizing real-world assets? Put real estate aside for a minute, because that's going to take longer. It's happening maybe more slowly than a lot of people thought, but how does that fit into your vision?
Yeah. So first of all, it's a great and very relevant question for right now. It fits exactly into our vision because, again, we strongly believe that ultimately all assets are digital assets. I'm an engineer by training, and so are quite a lot of people on the Talos team. We've built a lot of the infrastructure out there for capital markets. We strongly believe that the kind of tools that you can build today on top of digital assets are night and day. The things that we can do today in digital assets are just mind-boggling in terms of the capabilities, capital efficiency, in terms of understanding your risk in real time. Ultimately, we think that all assets migrate there, but there's a timing component there. And I think the people used to constantly believe that you're looking at all your traditional assets and you're basically saying, let's pick one that makes the most sense to migrate digital assets first. Let's pick the ones that are is it fixed income because it's very hard to do? Is it the back office for this other asset class? The reality is starting to shape up a little bit differently. What we are seeing is we're seeing adoption across things like repo. So repo is starting to migrate a little bit more to digital assets rails because repo intraday is very, very, very hard to do. Repo for some short amounts of time, right? Very, very hard to do logistically. Crypto, or rather digital assets, solves that for you. And then the other thing that's really, really cool, and that's again lessons of the past year, right? We always said equities is going to be the last one. Equities is, look behind us, right? Equities is traded really well. It's an efficient asset class. Front office is super efficient. We know how to trade equities from an electronic perspective. The clients don't care. So when the retail sector across the globe comes in and they say, but we want to have a wallet that does this, and we want to trade these 24/7, we want to trade this through the weekend, we want to be able to hold this, I want to be transacting with this friend, that's going to move the asset class to digital assets rails. So we are tracking all this kind of stuff. We're participating in quite a lot of these initiatives. And generally, my point of view is that the clients, the traction, will determine what migrates next, but the migration is inevitable.
This is a very interesting discussion because you started with the efficiency, and that's where you would think a lot of digital assets are going to come into play, crypto and the blockchain, take the inefficiencies out. Let's not start with equities because they're very efficient, but people don't want the bell, right? And so...
And people want access. People want to get to a marketplace that includes all those assets. They want to transact fast. It's ultimately a lot of other things, right? You can build the best device in the world, but if it doesn't sell, if you don't have the clients for it, nobody cares.
Yeah, and I can buy fractional shares on Robinhood. That's fine, but I want my wallet.
That's exactly right. And so that's what we see. We see this kind of like a duality of like what makes sense versus what the client wants, and I can tell you that the clients tend to win.
Are we at a generational tipping point as well, or is it intergenerational?
I don't think it's as extreme, you know. I think that ultimately maybe different people see different aspects of things that appeal to them in their particular journey, using their own kind of targets, like what they're trying to achieve. I don't think that this is like a true generational change. I do think that it's transformation. That the way we know what we know about finance and the finance that we know and worked with all of our lives, that is going to change materially. It's going to become more global, it's going to be faster, it's going to, and it doesn't have to be real time, but it's going to be faster than what it is today. It's going to become a lot more comfortable, a lot more approachable to quite a lot of people around the world. And that's actually where you want the market to go. So, you know, I think that's where we're headed.
I mean, you said it doesn't have to be real time. Is there a lot of latency in the system?
Today? In the capital markets?
Yeah.
So, yeah, just a touch.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, every time that we're very, very used to speaking about, like, you know, what is T+1, T+2, T+3. You have to understand, like, sometimes the reasoning is operational. You do these things not because, like, you want to settle, you know, 2-3 days into the future. So effectively, like, you know, you and I did a trade, but we can't settle that trade for another 2 to 3 days. It's because, like, some operational processes need to happen. Digital assets shortcut quite a lot of that.
Yeah.
So actually, the interesting thing, we just had this conversation with one of the largest, financial institutions in the world this morning, where what's going to happen is you're going to see a balance, right? The technology is going to get you to the point where we can settle trades effectively, you know, like 5 minutes out, like 1 minute out. And that's the case today in crypto. Crypto is like the poster child of it, which is interesting to see, like, where crypto meets the traditional assets, right? Crypto, you can settle your trades. If I'm trading with you bilaterally tomorrow, I want to send you the assets. It's just as fast as the chain. And that means, like, you know, in some chains it's 10 minutes, in some chains it's 20 seconds. And the assets are done. You have almost like finality. They're in your wallet on the other side. Is that where we want to be in capital markets? Not clear. We still want to go through checks. We still want to do the things. We still want to net. So chances are what we're going to see is we're going to see this kind of like almost like end of day settlement on a netted basis, but for everything, for every asset.
As an inherent buffer, which is a feature, not a bug.
That's exactly right. And that's the way to look at it. To look at it as a feature, but not as a bug. Not as something that you absolutely have to do, but something that allows you the capabilities and the safety that you need.
So that brings me to my next question. We touched on it before, sort of a TAM expansion into portfolio management, but is there also a compliance angle for you?
Yeah, 100%. So, you know, when we started the company, our bread and butter was always in trading. And that's still, like, we are the largest one by far in what we do. And we all started from trading. And that's providing the clients with the ability to trade. Over the past 3.5 years, we've been expanding very dramatically into the other aspects of the investment lifecycle. And that's exactly where we find our clients come in. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because with digital assets, you can do that. You know, a lot of these things, like having technology embedded in the asset class, allows you to connect a lot of those pieces together. And to be more specific, what are those pieces? When we show our clients, when we have a portfolio management and we are showing our clients where their assets are, that's the real representation of the assets. That's real time. You have immediate visibility into your assets. When we trade those assets, that's trading activity. When we then settle those assets, that's the actual movement of those assets. All those things are now done inside the platform. So Talos is migrating more and more into this one-stop shop. We allow our clients to go all the way from pre-trade to post-trade.
Full life cycle.
Exactly. And I think that that's one of the innovations that we can do, and that's one of the innovations this digital assets provide. You can do that today using this new technology.
So you are really underscoring the shifts in institutional trading. I mean, you're at the heart of it. Fast forward 5 years, what does this world look like?
Well, I mean, you know, the way 5 years is an interesting one because, like, with everything that's going on right now, with the evolution constantly accelerating, it's hard to say. Sometimes it is, right? Yeah. Sometimes it's literally 5 months. We are thinking that we are going to see a lot more tokenization, a lot more digitization of capital markets. We are going to see migration of quite a lot of these assets to on-chain. Will the migration be complete? Pretty much 100% no. We are going to see representation, you know, in traditional markets, but we will see more and more representations of asset classes here. For Talos, that means that we have to, over time, encompass more and more of the asset classes, more and more. And it's kind of like, if you think about it, it's two dimensions that we care about. We care about one, how many asset classes we have on the platform, because all of our clients right now, the traditional clients that are coming in, they're not coming in saying like, oh, I only trade crypto. They're coming in saying crypto is yet another thing I trade, but I trade everything else. I hold everything else. I provide services and everything else. We need to grow up to be a company that allows them to exercise the gamut of those possibilities, like cover that entire landscape. So that's, that's kind of like one thing. That's one dimension. The second dimension for us is the kind of services that we provide. Again, because today you can connect quite a lot of these things, you can seamlessly go from pre-trade to trade to post-trade. We have to provide those services. Compliance, is one of those. So we have so far, we've made 3 acquisitions to date. We are likely going to be making more acquisitions. For us, the strategy is we build. If we don't believe we can build it, it's buy. And if we don't believe we should be building or buying it, it's partner. And so we think about it as like, here's the entire investment lifecycle. We divide that into rows, and we basically say, where do we build, where do we buy, where do we partner to be the kind of company we need to be in 5 years or in 5 months.
And when you choose to buy versus build, you just look at what it's going to cost to build, your estimate of the time it's going to take, and the value you can accrue on the M&A, and how fast you can get that back.
Yeah, I mean,
presume,
that's
are there architectural considerations as well?
Always.
And so technically, you've got to have the right mindset, the right philosophy. There's cultural issues as well, yeah?
You should join our M&A team.
Yeah.
So
somebody told me one time I should be in M&A. I've given so much M&A advice to my M&A friends.
You've definitely seen it all. So no, look, I mean, you're absolutely right. All those parameters matter quite a lot. What you're paying. Is it actually 1 + 1 = 3? Like, what are you getting to? Is time to market is another thing. If you think that the market for something is going to be valid in 3 years, buying something today that is fully developed doesn't make sense. Right? We know that we can develop. This is literally what we're the best at. We are the best at executing. We are engineers. We know how to build this kind of stuff. And then to your point, what is the technical ability of the other team? That's very, very important, because ultimately that's how platforms, fail or how the platforms succeed. We need to know that we can, for us, it's not, hey, let's own a bunch of different things. For us, it's let's provide a coherent experience to our customer. And for that, integration has to be part of it. For that, technology plays a big role.
Anton, I asked you sort of your vision of the future. You sort of laid it out. What bets were you making on things that won't change? What's not going to change in the future that you would double down and bet on?
That's interesting. I mean, the nature of the clients doesn't necessarily change. The use cases don't change. Talos has almost, if you will, 2 groups of larger clients. So we have the buy-side institutions, and obviously we have the sell-side, or rather service providers. So on the service provider, we power some of the largest retail brokers, institutional brokers, OTC desks, and so on and so forth, right? The kind of services they provide, and the kind of services that we see banks right now coming in and starting to figure out how they can provide to those customers, that doesn't necessarily change. The demand is still there. Underlying folks want to be able to own these assets. Some of them want to speculate on these assets. Corporations need them for operational reasons. Like, the use cases underlying don't change. Some changes in terms of how people make money. Some of the strategies change. People want to trade the basis. People want to trade something else. Like, opportunities in the market change. That changes. But generally speaking, finance is not the main thing. Finance powers the world. The world doesn't necessarily change that much, right? There's use cases, and the world is set up in a certain way. So I think that combination of understanding what the clients ultimately want to achieve will continue and forever will be the driving force in terms of what do we develop. But the functionality, how you do it, that changes pretty significantly.
And your customers, they want as little friction as possible. That's
always been the case.
Right, that's never going to change. Right?
No, and actually, there's a speaking of change, there's a very interesting trend there, especially over the past 15 years. So if you look at it, 15 years ago, a lot of traditional institutions were very happy to build on their own. They would come in and they would say, because there are also not a lot of solutions, right? Yeah. So you're like, hey, I'm going to build a data thing, I'm going to build connectivity, and then I'm going to build the algo execution, I'm going to build a settlement layer. Today, that's almost unheard of, right? The institutions today know that they should focus on things that are key to them, that are unique to them, and go to people like us or to other vendors where it's commoditized, where, we do this for everybody. So the change has been that there's a lot more dependency on layers like us, but for us, to use your point, people want less friction, right? Actually, the interesting thing is not only do they want less friction, they're willing to pay for it too. So even in capital markets, if, when I was in asset management, if somebody came to us and they said, like, listen, but our platform can handle these multiple asset classes and can do this kind of stuff, we would pay more. I will tell you, because integration is horrible.
Yeah.
And thinking about like how to connect all those pieces together is horrible. So Talos is solving that for our clients. We're saying it's a one-stop shop, come in, you don't have to do everything that we do, but pick what you do, and a lot of this stuff is going to get integrated.
And the point you're making about them not doing the heavy lifting that's a commodity, what's the point of that? If they can buy it, why build it? AI really accentuates that even further because they've got their own proprietary data. They might have their own proprietary processes that aren't out there trained on an LLM and that they can apply AI to and get competitive advantage potentially and build on top of that. Yeah.
And that's a great analogy, right? There's going to be this distinction between, there's going to be things that are unique to you. Look at, there's one of the very, very large quantitative asset managers that's talking about this right now. They've been forever recording all the data that they have, recording every conversation that they have, right? And right now they're starting to, like very publicly, they're talking about like training the large language models on that data. Now, back in the day, you would build the entire functionality by yourself. Today, they are going to large language models that are generally like in the industry. Even that part is now becoming commoditized. And the unique thing is the one that's truly unique to them. Not their ability to build large language models, but their ability to generate this unique set of data. So it's a great analogy in terms of like this division that's happening between people that are going to be generating capital based on their unique abilities and using the commoditized for everything else.
Interesting. Anton, thanks so much for coming on theCUBE. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
All right, and best of luck.
Thank you so much.
All right, and thank you for watching today's coverage of our Crypto Trailblazers Media Week. This is Dave Vellante for John Furrier. Second bell, you may not know, the options exchange closes 15 minutes after the stock exchange. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on theCUBE and NYSE Wired.